Hello everybody, how's it going? alecandstuff here, and we're back again with episode 3 of Collabmas! That's right, we are at the height of 2022's holiday season now, and we have been celebrating all month long with this video, as well as more appropriately festive content. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next couple episodes. So, it's that time of year again, and for today's video, I thought it would be fun to count down some of the top 10 best winter levels in Nintendo's history, because, trust me, there have been some really cool ones over the years. Now, there's obviously a lot of stuff to consider here, and I'm not going to be taking this task on alone, so I brought on my friend Roger's Base to go ahead and join us for today's video. Roger, thanks for hanging, man.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. And honestly, I feel like there are going to be a lot of people surprised by some of the choices on our list, because this isn't just relegated to first-party Nintendo games. This is any winter level across any Nintendo platform. So there will be things on here that are going to surprise people.
Roger's going to be lending some of his expertise to us for today's list, so now that we've gotten all of the introduction stuff out of the way, let's get this winter level countdown rolling, starting with number 10. Kicking off our list here is a crowd favorite from Sonic Mania, that being Press Garden Zone, but specifically the Act 2 version of the stage. This whole level feels kind of like a warm hug, as it features a lot of familiar visual elements that you'll see pretty commonly in winter levels, like, you know, snow, for one, as well as some icy platforming and these snowblower enemies that can freeze Sonic and crew solid if they get too close. Although, what I think makes this level just a cut above your usual winter level is the theming. Beyond just being a winter wonderscape, Press Garden Zone also features a lot of ancient architecture mixed with a bit of an industrialized look, thanks in part to Dr. Eggman's propaganda factory, which the crew totally destroys along the way. All of this, combined with the cherry blossoms scattered throughout the level, give the entirety of Press Garden Zone 2 that classic red and white color palette, and it makes this level one of our favorites over the years. I mean, nothing says the holiday winter season quite like blowing up an industrial-sized propaganda factory, right, Roger?
Yeah, I know that some people are probably going to be surprised by the fact that we included Press Garden Zone, but honestly, like, the visuals of this level, the music of this level, and pretty much everything about the theming just oozes personality to me. It's one of those things that, while it isn't necessarily festive or holiday themed, I do think the winter aspect of Act 2 of Press Garden Zone really does add to the overall theming and makes it such a memorable part of Sonic Mania.
You ever have one of those games that you just wish you could pick up and experience for the first time all over again? For me, one of those games is Super Mario Galaxy. This is a game I hold very near and dear to my heart, and it should come as no surprise that Super Mario Galaxy just so happens to be my favorite 3D Mario game. A big reason for that is just how imaginative, whimsical, and just flat-out fun every Galaxy feels. While it's not as challenging as other Mario games in the series, Galaxy perfects the platforming formula and makes an experience that's both fun and rewarding for players of any skill level. So when it came to considering our picks for top 10 winter levels in Nintendo history, I had no other choice than to include Freeze Flame Galaxy. This galaxy is a joy to complete. As the name implies, this world is essentially split up into two halves, one with freezing waters and icy terrain, and the other with fiery paths and pools of lava. Some of the missions in this galaxy play into that fire and ice theme too, with my favorite of the bunch being the Hot and Cold Collide Star, which has Mario jumping between hot and cold themed planetoids all the way until the very end of the mission, where Mario is quite literally ice skating on top of boiling panels of lava in space. Only in Super Mario Galaxy can you get an experience like that, and in this course, it pays off in spades. Freeze Flame Galaxy also feels like it was Nintendo's opportunity to showcase some of the graphical prowess of the Wii at the time. As such, you'll notice that Freeze Flame Galaxy has tons of beautiful reflections in its icy terrain, which, positioned next to the glowing, radiant particle effects of the lava, really just looks so good. A fact that is all the more apparent now with the Switch OLED, where the colors just really, really pop. There have been a ton of awesome and incredibly fun winter-themed levels over the years, and Freeze Flame Galaxy is certainly one of the coolest. Pokemon games have had their fair share of wintry levels over the years. I mean, heck, there's even a few on this very list. So, we'll be leading off strong on our Pokemon reps by starting with the Alabaster Icelands from this year's Pokemon Legends Arceus. The Alabaster Icelands span a large area full of snowy mountains, underground caves, and is even home to some pretty awesome story beats, most notably the, giant, noble, Hisuian Avalugg fight, which was just a huge hurdle for me in my first playthrough. In a good way, of course. Another nice touch to the Icelands is that it seems to be the setting of the short anime series Pokemon Hisuian Snow. Now, to be honest, this fact alone gets bonus points from me because the main character's name is Alec, and that is just the coolest thing. And yes, I will be holding on to that forever because my name is in a Pokemon anime. That's so cool.
And to add on top of everything you already said regarding the Alabaster Icelands, this is one of the only areas in the game to catch Hisuian Zorua and Hisuian Zoroark, and their designs have to be some of the coolest Hisuian designs in all of Legends Arceus, so it lands a spot on the list just for that one fact alone. Also, something else I want to bring up real quick is that neither of us initially had Alabaster Icelands on our list for our favorite winter-themed levels in the Pokemon franchise. And it was not because we don't like the area, obviously we love it. It was just that both of us forgot about it because Arceus is so new. But the second we were talking about it and bringing up all the cool things regarding the Alabaster Icelands, we knew it had to land a spot here.
Our pick for number 7 comes from Russia. That is to say, a place that was inspired by Russian culture and climate. Shiveria is probably one of the most memorable kingdoms from Super Mario Odyssey for me, despite my love for almost all of them. Except for you. Like I said before, the climate in Shiveria is very, very cold. So much so that upon first arrival, you'll actually notice that Mario starts to shiver when standing out in the snow, which is quite expansive in the top half of this kingdom. You'll find your standard fare for snow levels like freezing waters, icy cliffsides, and sometimes you'll find little hidden surprises like this Koopa whose only challenge is to have you walk in a triangle, which is much harder than it sounds. All of this is just half of the story though, because as it turns out, Shiveria actually has a town. Located deep underneath the icy terrain is a small town populated by the locals called the Shiverians, who are cute enough to warm your heart after spending so much time in the cold. I mean, just look at these little chunks! In the town, though, you'll come across log cabin-style architecture, warm fires, shops, and a super cool racing challenge course that's called the Bound Bowl that, as it turns out, is a long-standing tradition in Shiverian culture. This is one of the coolest moments in Odyssey, so I'll use this as an opportunity to say, play Super Mario Odyssey, and if you have already played it, play it again! There were a few times over the course of my first playthrough that I was just in awe of Sword and Shield city designs. Visually speaking, there are times where this game is just flat out pretty to look at, which is something I'm sure everyone can agree on, right? Jokes aside, I remember the first time I set foot in this city and just how taken aback I was by how good this game can look. Obviously, for today's list, we're going to be talking about Circhester. Circhester is a town located in the northeastern portion of the Galar region, and it tends to give off very cozy vibes. First of all, it's cold. Like, really cold. The town experiences perpetual snow, meaning that at any time of the day, and presumably any time of the year, Circhester is always experiencing some sort of snowfall, which leans into the whole winter theme of this list pretty well, eh? This town is also really neat in that it's also very old. You sort of get the vibe that a lot of the buildings and even some of the residents have been here for a very long time, and you can actually catch glimpses of that rich history around the town, most notably from the Hero's Bath, which is located in the very center of town. Circhester also features a thematically appropriate gym leader, if you're playing Pokemon Shield version, that is. Seriously, Game Freak, y'all did us sword players so dirty with this one.
Dude, I am right there with you. Melanie is one of my absolute favorite recent gym leaders. I love her design. I just think she's super cute. I love her team. And obviously, I love Circhester City as well. This was another Pokemon-themed area that when we were putting these lists together, it was like, we have to include this one. The hot tub area and Melanie alone earned it its spot.
All right, guys, we are officially in top 5 territory with this one. So, for our number 5 slot, we decided to throw it back, or forward? To what the Alabaster Icelands eventually ended up becoming, and that is the Sinnoh region's Snowpoint City. This little town is located in the far north of the region and is quite possibly one of the coziest town settings in Pokemon history. To start off, you've got snow blowing in from Mount Coronet nearby, thus the chilly climate. And, don't even get me started on the gym leader, right? So Snowpoint is also home to the Sinnoh region's ice-type gym leader, Candace, whose gym always made me feel like a monkey, trying to solve a Rubik's Cube. It's simple, right? You just slide around on the ice. How hard could it be, right? Oh, God.
Also, I love the fact that Candace uses a Medicham, despite the fact that Medicham is not an Ice-type Pokemon. She just threw Ice Punch on there and was like, yeah, you know what? That belongs on my team.
When it came to thinking of some of my favorite winter levels in Nintendo's history, I knew I had to include Banjo-Kazooie's Freeze-Easy Peak. The worlds in these games are very well known for having tons of stuff to do in them, and Freeze-Easy Peak is no exception. There's a lot of things I love about this level in particular, but what sets this apart from the rest of our regular winter level picks so far is that this one has the added element of holiday-themed objectives to complete for Jiggies that are scattered around the map. So, for starters, you've got this big snowman in the middle of the map that sort of resembles Frosty the Snowman if you look at him from the right angle. You've also got this bobsled racing against Boggy the polar bear. Wahey! You've got a mission called Help the Twinklies, which has you helping these little Christmas lights make their way to decorate this tree that lights up once you do. Super cute. But perhaps my favorite objective in this whole level comes from this little igloo that's located right at the very entrance. Once inside, you'll find 3 sad little polar bears who are all crying because their dad didn't get them any presents. Way to go, Boggy. Anyway, their presents are all scattered around the map, and once you bring them all back to the kids, they go from sad and crying to jumping for joy, and isn't that what the holidays are really about? In addition, since this is a Banjo-Kazooie game, that means that all the music was done by the wonderfully talented Grant Kirkhope, and I'd be lying if I said some of this music still doesn't get stuck in my head to this day, 20 plus years later. Just listen to this. All this to say, Freeze-Easy Peak makes for a solid entry on our list here and definitely worthy of a top 5 pick. Being one of the best themed tracks in Mario Kart history, it should be no surprise to anyone that Mario Kart Tour's Merry Mountain has finally made its way into the main series games via the most recent pack of tracks that just released earlier this month. Merry Mountain leans heavily into the very obvious Christmas inspirations, and it really does pay off. You've got a giant Christmas tree right as you round the first corner. You've also got string lights that are adorned all across the entire track's village, kind of, further adding to that homey vibe that almost feels kind of reminiscent of something like a classic Christmas film. The whole area is adorned with candy canes, red and green color schemes, snow, obviously, giant presents nestled into the sides of the hilltops just outside the village, gondolas that scale the mountain. It really does feel like this track checks off nearly every box. Then, as if any of that isn't enough to warrant its inclusion on this list, there's also this train flying through the sky that's best visible on the glide ramps near the end of the level that features these cute little toads delivering presents.
Yeah, I think of everything that's on this list, Merry Mountain is probably the most deserving to be here in terms of just its festive vibe. It is the one definitive area in every Nintendo game that just oozes Christmas spirit and the holiday season. And I loved it the first time that I saw it in Mario Kart Tour, so I was thrilled that they decided to add it as DLC for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And that's honestly what I'm planning to play with my family during this holiday break, is just Merry Mountain over and over and over again. Edit the items in there, all blue shells. We're gonna have a good time.
Yes, Snow Peak Ruins. My favorite wintry level from any Zelda game. If you've been around the channel for a while, you probably already know that Twilight Princess is my all-time favorite Zelda game, and when it came to picking levels for this list, I knew Zelda had a few options to choose from, but after some consideration, I felt like we had to go with Snow Peak Ruins. Set atop a frigid, snowy mountain, the Snow Peak Ruins is a large mansion filled with icy puzzles and tons of enemies for Link to make his way through. Based on these factors alone, it would be fair to say that Snow Peak fits the requirements for winter level, but what makes the ruins stand apart from any other wintry Zelda level is the story that's associated with it. On the way to the ruins, Link has to make his way through the mountains, and it's during that trek Link meets a strange Yeti named Yeto, who tells Link that his wife has the mirror shard he's come to the mountains looking for. What follows is a surprisingly fun sledding sequence in which Yeto joins you. However, The story doesn't end there, as you find out when you arrive to the ruins that Yeto's wife, Yeta, claims that the mirror has made her sick and thus locked it away in her bedroom. At this point, the official dungeon portion of Snow Peak officially begins, and what a dungeon it is! These ruins are filled with tons of appropriately icy enemies and monsters for Link to defeat along the way. I mean, also, in addition, the mansion itself is it's beautiful and really lends itself well to the whole ice motif, but I think what helps tie it all together is the music that accompanies you the whole time. When I hear this song, it inspires this sense of intrigue and mystery in me, and I think that is incredibly fitting for the setting because it really is a mystery, isn't it? How did this mansion get here? Who built it? Surely it wasn't the Yetis. Why is it buried so deep within the mountains? Does Yeta have to solve all of these intricate puzzles every time she wants to go to bed? What's going on here? Anyway, after making your way through the dungeon and getting to the bedroom, what follows is probably one of the most iconically creepy moments in Zelda history, and I think that adds a nice little bow to the incredibly fun, satisfying, and in the end, sweet story of one of Zelda's coolest levels. Octopath Traveler is just one of those games that, after playing for the first time, you get the sense that, oh yeah, this game is definitely gonna be a classic. Of course, only time will tell whether or not that's true, but nevertheless, my first playthrough of Octopath Traveler blew me away, and in more ways than one, actually. In all honesty, I'm not much of an RPG fan myself because they scare me. The mechanics at play can be so in-depth that they feel complicated, the thought of grinding to get past that one boss scares me, and most of all, they're long. I mean, at my age, I don't have the time to dedicate to playing games that are 100 plus hours a pop, and yet, every single game in the genre that I do decide to play, I end up loving, so hey, maybe I am a fan after all. That being said, I never have been more immediately sold on a game than with Octopath Traveler, and that's thanks in large part to one of the game's first areas, Flame's Grace. For those that started the game with Ophelia, like myself, Flame's Grace is one of your first introductions to the world of Octopath Traveler, and boy, what an introduction it is. The thing that immediately struck me about this town was its musical theme. There's a certain feeling of loneliness and understanding mixed in with this tune, and it really just gives the player that warm hug feeling that I mentioned earlier. It's so incredibly easy to get lost in that theme whilst just taking in the surroundings and watching the beautiful pixel snow just fall to the ground. It's a truly peaceful setting, and while I could honestly write an entire essay about the things I love about this game, and you know, as many words as that would take, I'm sure Roger could write even more than I could. So with that said, take us home, Roger.
You know, I feel like for anyone who's familiar with my content, this is probably a no-brainer. Like, obviously, I was going to put this on this list. I love the HD2D games, Octopath Traveler, Live Alive, Triangle Strategy. But when looking at those titles and which game had the best winter-themed area, this was also a no-brainer for me. I feel like Flame's Grace is so iconic from the very first time you step foot in that area. The music is so good. Every time I hear it, I feel like I have to go sit by the fire and grab a cup of hot cocoa, put a little whipped cream on, and just relax and soak in all the beautiful vibes. I feel like, again, this is not something that people would think about in terms of a Nintendo wintry area, because again, Octopath Traveler, while being published by Nintendo in North America, is actually a Square Enix game, but I think nothing encapsulates the vibes of the season more than this area, and I was so happy that when we were deliberating on this list that this was our unequivocal number one from the very beginning.
Well, guys, there you have it. To my surprise, while researching for this video, I found that Nintendo has actually had quite a lot of winter-themed levels over the years in their games, so narrowing things down to only 10 for this video was more of a challenge than I anticipated, though I like to think we did a pretty good job. But these are just our personal picks. What are your thoughts? Did we do good? Are there any levels that we may not have mentioned that you feel deserve to be included? Feel free to let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, as I would love to discuss with you guys. Oh, and before we go, I want to give a huge shout out to my good friend Roger Space for joining me for this video.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. It was a ton of fun putting this list together, and hopefully this gives you guys some ideas for things that you can play over the holiday break. So thanks so much for watching.
Yeah, no, thanks, Roger. You can subscribe to him here on YouTube, and I'll leave the links to do that all in the description below. Drop that man a sub. He is great. But anyways, gang, I think that's about it for this video. So with all of that said, and without further ado, there's only one thing left to say before we take off, and that is, as always, I'm alecandstuff. Do your best out there. I'm rooting for you, and I will be seeing you all again in the next episode. Okay? All right. Bye!
Hi there! Thank you for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, feel free to hit the like button. Subscribe if you want to see more, and hopefully we'll see each other again in the next video. Bye!